Hey guys, it's Glassbox here and welcome to my video tutorial series. This is the third video in my HTML video tutorial series, and in this video we're going to be covering attributes as part of elements. So to really refresh, this is an element and we're now going to be covering a slightly different thing called attributes. But before I do that, I've realized I've actually missed something from the second video. In the second video I said that we'd talk about a self-closing tag. In other words, I said we'd look at something like this. And so let's cover that first really quickly. A self-closing tag is basically a tag that doesn't really need a partner. So in this case, this has an opening tag and a closing tag, but a self-closing tag doesn't need one. So what is a self-closing tag? HTML provides various tags which don't need two tags to be present. And one of those is called the line break element. In other words, this tag here. So this is an example of a tag that doesn't need an opening and a closing tag. It is self-contained. So what does this tag do? Well, all this tag does is it inserts a break line. To make it a little more easy to explain, it basically creates a certain amount of space between the immediate tag above it and the immediate tag below it. So in this case, between this hello world and this hello world here. So the first thing I'll do is I'll remove this to make it a little bit more easier to see. And when I now save this page, what will happen is it will insert an invisible amount of space. In other sense, a break line between the first hello world and the second hello world. So if I save that and refresh the page, I can now see that there is an amount of space between the first hello world and the second hello world. The important thing to take from this example is that this is a tag which doesn't need an opening and a closing tag. It is a self-contained tag. So moving on with this video tutorial. In this video tutorial, we'll be talking about attributes. So what is an attribute? To understand an attribute, we need to really quickly visit an element. An element is simply a tag here. It's got an opening and a closing tag. Each of these tags is an element. We have the ability to provide options inside an element tag, and these options are called attributes. So for instance, if I were to hit the space button, I can actually now provide a number of options which belong to this element. Or to be more specific, there are a number of different attributes, and many attributes can be applied to many different types of elements. As an example, if you have a look, at the moment, we have the text on the left-hand side of this page. We have an attribute called the align attribute. And we are now basically saying inside this element that this element has an align attribute. We haven't, however, supplied a value for this align attribute. So the value we want to assign to this align attribute is quite simple. All you do is equals and double quotes, and inside here we can give it an option. So in this case I can say right. So what does this actually mean? What this means is this paragraph element has an attribute. It is an attribute of type align, and this align has a value called right. In essence, what's happening is we're saying anything inside this paragraph element must be right aligned on the page. So if I save this and refresh this page, we can now see that all the text in that particular element has been aligned to the right side of the page. Now, similarly to how we're saying that an element can have many different types of attribute, an attribute can also have many different types of values. Now, we can't really make up a value of our own. So we can't say something like, I don't know, top right of the page. We can't really do anything like this. Not for predefined values anyway. We can through CSS styling, but we'll get onto that in another video. So in this case, we can't do that. But what we can do is use the values which come as part of this align attribute. And the 4 values that come as part of it are left, which will align text to the left, right, which is align text to the right, justify, and center. So if I save this and refresh the page, we can now see that the text has been aligned to the center of the page. Let's have a look at a couple of more examples of attributes inside element tags. Another really famous tag I wanted to look at was the image tag. The image tag allows us to bring images, or it allows us to tell our HTML script to basically draw or render an image onto the web page. And to do that, it is actually quite simple. All we say is image, and this is an example of a self-closing tag. Why? Because for an image tag, we don't really have to do this. Why? You'll see in a second. For now, I'll just keep it as it is. Now, we can use the image tag to supply an image to the web page. Now, at the moment, I have an image already ready. If I double click on this, this is the image here. It's the icon to my channel. All I want to do is basically use this image and then render it on the page. To supply the image, we must add an attribute of image called source. And in here, we need to basically supply the path to that image. So in this case, the name of my image is glassboxed, and it is a type of JPEG file. So if I type in glassboxed.jpg, the image from here should now render on the page. Oh, it hasn't. Let me just double check why. Oh, it's a typo. And there you go. So we can use the image tag to render images on a page. Now, I'll go into a lot more about the image tag in a later video. What I'm simply trying to demonstrate here is we have to provide, in this instance, a element with an attribute inside to actually do something. In other words, we don't actually need to give any information here. This is kind of pointless. We don't really need to do anything. So this said, if we don't really need to do anything, then what is the point of having a closing tag in this instance anyway? We actually get no value out of it. So this is an example, or this is a good case where we would want to use another self-closing tag. In other words, there is no need to have an opening and a closing tag for image. Image tags can take in multiple different types of attributes, just as a paragraph tag would. So as I said before, an element can take in multiple attributes, and another attribute we can pass in, especially in the case of an image, would be something like the width attribute. Using the width attribute, we can actually define a specific size of the width of the image. So in this case, we've just said 100, which would define the width of the image. Similarly, we can also define the height. So now you can see that I've only given it half the height compared to the width. So it's kind of squashed the image. Similarly, our text, however, hasn't disappeared. Doing this has not affected anything else on the page. So in this video, I just wanted to cover the concept of attributes and how to apply attributes to a given element. We've seen how we can use it to align text. We've seen how we can use it to tell us about sources or resources outside of the current page. And we've also used it to tell us or rather allow us to modify the contents of a page. And that's it for this video, folks. Thanks for watching. Hi guys, it's Glassboxed here, and I really appreciate you guys watching my video. And if you've liked it, then give it a thumbs up. If you already haven't, hit the subscribe button below to stay up to date with my latest video releases covering all aspects of technical testing. Also, follow me on Twitter and Google, links in the description below. Until next time, ciao.